And there you can see the unfair trade. Michael J. Casey, a man who spanned the globe to write this book, to get the story of how a financial system is affecting the middle class, squeezing the middle class. Let's start in Spain today. We're going to have you on for a couple days here, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's start in Spain, because Spain obviously an epicenter of concern these days.
Absolutely. It's actually convenient for my purposes, in fact, that it is Spain that's the focal point. You know, one of the things I discovered, I spent, as you said, a lot of time in different countries, and I spent a bit of time on the Costa del Sol, which in many respects is the epicenter of the crisis, the housing bubble, and then the bust that hit Spain and led to this massive unemployment problem. And now we've got Bankia, which is being bailed out by the government.
Right over the weekend we got that news.
$19 billion in bailout money. That's the amalgam of 7 caja, savings banks. These are the banks that were sort of putting up money and building up these condominiums in these parts of the world. So I went there just to see what the human impact of this was. And you know, it was just quite striking. These guys just did not know what had hit them. These are people who were living off this construction boom, and everybody was ending their jobs as farmers and whatever else they were doing, and sort of picking up shovels and going to work in the construction industry. And like a light switch, it all just stopped, and the economy cratered, and people were just left shell-shocked by this.
Now, this is a beautiful little seaside town down there in Costa del Sol, right? Has the effect there, I mean, would Americans recognize this kind of a crash? Is it worse than what we saw here?
I think it's worse because of the extremes to which it went to. I mean, this was like condominium madness. I mean, they were just building along the waterfront there these big villas that they were expecting hordes and hordes of people to come into. I think to some extent they'd never really had anything like this before. Remember, one of the problems with the whole Euro experiment is that it delivered this kind of river of cheap credit to these peripheral countries that they didn't know what to deal with, and so it all just naturally went into real estate, similar to what happened in Ireland and other places. And I think it was to another degree beyond the crisis here. It was different. Here was all this kind of funky mortgage facilities and so forth. There it was just an abundance of credit.
Now, I mean, obviously we talk about this at the sort of high policy level all the time, but at the ground level, at the human level, how do the people there respond now? What do they do now? How do they pick up their lives again?
I mean, some of them are thinking about emigrating, right? I mean, which is ironic, because Spain was a huge, intake of immigrants. There are a lot of North Africans come across the border and would fill the jobs, particularly the construction jobs. Now there are people saying, I'm going to go work in Germany, or I'm going to go, because the EU still does have this possibility, but if they don't speak English, they haven't got that option. I mean, really, it did seem like they just did not know what to do. I mean, I went to these places where the taxi rank that was out the front of this bar where I was in there talking to people, was just sitting there, just not moving for hours. The same taxi at the front. There was just
no one's gone anywhere, nothing
going
to do.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So they're obviously looking for some sort of boost, and they're hoping that there'll be some level of fiscal impetus, perhaps from these investment plans that the likes of Francois Hollande and others are talking about. But we know where that's going, and,
right.
and the sort of disputes within the Eurozone on the kind of fiscal spending that's needed.
All
so
right.
not much hope for these folks, unfortunately.